All right. And on the Who's Who of the Joshua Perry Show, we have a good friend of mine, I guess a fast friend. Known him not entirely too long, but we've hit it off. Kenny Bell, former Nebraska wide receiver, former NFL player, currently contributing with the Big Ten Network, among a bunch of other cool stuff he's got going on. How you doing, KB?
Doing well, brother. Yeah, it's funny you say that. Like, I'll be talking to my lady or my family talking about like the replies in our show, and I'll be like, "Oh yeah, my boy JP," and they're like, "Who is this Joshua Perry?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, we've been working together doing these shows. He graduated from Ohio State," and they're like, "Ohio State played linebacker," so
Yeah.
it's funny. It's funny to explain the situation, but it's been very dope.
No, it is funny. Like I find myself in the same scenario. I'm like, oh yeah, my guy Kenny, and they're like, if he's your guy, how come I never heard about him before? I'm like,
Yeah,
well, like we just became boys, but like we are definitely boys. So
yeah, no question.
no, it's gonna be fun. We got some cool stuff going on too for BTN this year. I don't want to put too much information out entirely too early, but I think we've got a really cool mix coming together. Obviously, we've been doing some stuff with the digital team on social media, and I think the folks have really been enjoying that. I know we have. So I'm looking forward as this season develops in a shortened year, what we can do together there. But I appreciate you spending some time. I wanted to bring you in because I feel like you have, first off, you're cool as heck, but you have a really unique story. I feel like your career at Nebraska was awesome. And I just kind of I want to share some of that with the people. So we'll start from the beginning. When did you start playing football, and when did you know that you were in love with the game?
Man, I probably my first year of tackle football was 6 here in Colorado, and I loved football forever. I mean, since I was 2 years old, I wanted to play football. My dad played in the league, so he played for the Broncos. I'm Kenny Bell Jr. My dad played at Boston College with Doug Flutie, and then he played in Denver with John Elway. So I always loved football. My family's always been a football family. Started right when I was 6 and played obviously until 2019. So it was honestly the dream come true. I couldn't complain 1 minute. I knew I wanted to play, and that's what my mindset was since I was a kid.
No, it's interesting hearing that because I feel like a lot of us have that similar mindset. I started playing tackle football when I was 9 years old. And so I played football more falls in my life than I haven't played football up to this point.
Yeah.
And you didn't get to watch your dad play. He was finished playing before you were born, right?
Yeah, my dad played. I was too young. He finished his uh, career in the World League with the Birmingham Fire,
Okay.
similar like how I finished my career in the Alliance of American Football. With Salt Lake City, it was like that kind of thing. So I never got to watch him play.
Have you ever seen the old highlights of your dad?
Oh yeah,
What do
yeah.
you say to him?
I make fun of him for being slow. you
That
know,
sounds like you. That's
Yeah,
hilarious.
you got to make fun of Pops for playing in the 80s. Obviously we stand on those guys' shoulders. We love them. The game wouldn't even be close to where it's at right now without them. But when it comes to giving the old man a hard time, I got to do it.
No, you absolutely have to. My dad obviously never played at that high of a level, but he was a good athlete in his own right, and he's done well in other arenas. So anytime I can try to, get a little dig in and get a jab in
Yeah.
on my old man, I try to get it in. So you are a kid from Colorado.
Yep.
You ended up going to Nebraska. What was the recruitment process like for you?
It was interesting, because people in Boulder were furious. And I was born and raised here in Colorado. I grew up in Boulder. I grew up going to Buffs camps. Some of my mother was a Buff. Some of my closest friends and family coached for the Buffs. Eric B. Enemy, the Embry family. Those are all the Tharp family, the athletic director at the time growing up. Were all really good friends of mine. So I wanted to be a Buff. I did. And I went to Fairview High School, which is right down the street from CU. And I mean, when I say down the street, I mean like half a mile, 1 mile. And the Buffs didn't really recruit me. I got offered, and Dan Hawkins was the coach at the time, and he didn't. They never came to any of my games. And where Folsom Field sits, where I played my high school games, is like at the bottom of the hill of
Mm-hmm.
Folsom Field. So I just didn't feel the love from the Buffs, and I was getting recruited by Nebraska at the time, and the wide receivers coach was at every game. And when the football season ended, he came to my basketball games. Bo Pelini came and visited myself and my family numerous times. So that love, like with how my family operates, we operate in relationships, and Nebraska built a great relationship with myself and my family through that recruiting process. So it was really no question for me.
No, I think that's the biggest thing about recruiting is, it's almost like speed dating in a lot of ways, but as much as you can make that connection, you get face to face with people. That's what really sells it. Because I feel like a lot of these universities, there are obviously differences, but many of them can do the same things for a young man. It's a relationship that I feel like can really make the difference. You said you played basketball in high school. Did you play any other sports?
My freshman year, I was still playing like everything I could, right? I was playing baseball, lacrosse, and I ran track. And after my freshman year, I was like, all right, I actually want to play football now, like just focus on football. So my sophomore and junior year, I only played football. And then I got my offers and stuff. In my senior year, after I committed to Nebraska, I decided, this was back before social media and that kind of stuff. So before I could I wanted to prove I was staying in shape. I couldn't post my workouts like with my trainer on my
Right.
IG like kids do today. So I was like, all right, I'm going to play basketball and then I'm going to run track to prove to Nebraska that I'm like working out and staying in shape while I'm still in school. So that's why I went back to basketball and track my senior year in high school.
Nice. So you talked about how Buffs fans were kind of pissed that you went to Nebraska, and I'm sure you had a host of other offers from different schools. Was there any bit of a, trying to figure out like a stick it to them type of reason that you would choose Nebraska over maybe some of the other schools that you had offers from, or was it genuinely you felt like Nebraska was the best place for you to succeed?
Yeah, I did feel that way. I felt like Nebraska was still close enough to home for me that I wouldn't get too homesick. That's just how I was. I've always loved Colorado. I've been very prideful of where I'm from and being close to family. So it allowed me to be close to my family, and at the same time, it offered me something that I had never seen before in a football program. Right? I'm from Colorado, where Saturdays, if it's Saturday and it's beautiful outside, like people are hiking, biking, they're out. No one goes to football games. Like if I'm being honest, in Boulder, that culture of football doesn't exist. So when I got to Nebraska and it was all things football, right? Like the university is the mecca of, the state. So that environment, just wrapped me in. I couldn't believe, people loved football that much. So that was incredibly enticing at 18 years old.
Definitely. And the reason I asked that question is because I got a little bit of pettiness in me. So, like if I wouldn't have gotten offered by Ohio State, I had other schools that I would have gone to, but I definitely would have flirted with Michigan just to be petty. So I asked you that question just out of that petty mindset.
Yeah.
But my next question was actually going to be about playing in Lincoln. And like you said, it's very much a college town. Obviously, you've got Omaha that's not very far away. And so you've got big city there, but Lincoln is Nebraska. Like that is the college town. You talk about fans being enthusiastic. There's a storied history there of tons of success and great players. And I'm wondering, because I've never actually been on that campus before, never played a game there, what it was truly like to be a part of that program and to play there on Saturdays.
Man, it was probably the biggest accomplishment of my life, the best 4 years of my life. The league was fun and everything, but my time spent in Nebraska, the relationships I developed, the network that I'm incredibly grateful to have access to because of my time there is really unlike anything other or anything else in the country. There's a lot of major universities, that these guys, have great careers at, and then, the fans and the university take care of those guys from opportunities long after their playing days are over. And Nebraska is the pinnacle of that. You look around how many guys still are in Lincoln, living off of opportunities that they developed through their college days. That's not a detriment to the state. I think that is what makes the fandom and the culture there so powerful.
It's really interesting you say that because as a guy who comes from a university culture that's strong like that, and there's a ton of pride and there's a ton of history, a lot of our guys end up coming back to Columbus, or they'll at least make their way back to spend time at games and to go back through the facility. And one thing that I found interesting when I was in the league is I would talk to certain players from other schools, and they would say that they never went back to campus. Once they
Yeah, they
left, that was
never.
the last time.
Yeah.
And it's so strange hearing that, because I know the pride that I have. And then I hear about your experience too. And I couldn't imagine having any other experience where you feel like you don't want to go back to your school.
Yeah, I could never imagine. I feel terrible for guys like that. I'm like, you guys should come to Lincoln with me every chance you get, then, because I I love Nebraska. I love the people. I love game days. I try and visit Nebraska as much as I can. Not even just for football season. Like, I like the volleyball team is fun to watch. They got a great wrestling program. Just the culture there is phenomenal when it comes to sports and surrounding that university. So I'm extremely thankful for my time there.
No, definitely. And I can definitely tell that about you. What was it like playing for Bo? I think we've all kind of seen, the veins popping out of the neck
Yeah,
and the face turning beet red on TV. What was it like being in this program?
I loved playing for Bo. Obviously, there was days that I was just like, man, this is brutal. Like, because there's no BS. There's not really much negotiation until you get older, and you get like, when you're young,
Yep.
he's just gonna rip you. But he does it in a way that it's to build character. You know what I mean? At 18, 19, I can definitely say I needed to be yelled at like that. You think you're king crap a turd mountain, walking around campus at 18, 19. You need to be knocked down a notch. And that's not necessarily for everyone. I'm not saying like everybody needs that, but I know our team did, and we responded to it well. And I know when you go back and look at those years spent, those guys, I can't speak for every single guy, but a majority of those guys will definitely go to bat for Bo because they know he had our best interest in mind. So it was tough. It was without a doubt tough. But I loved that coach, and I wouldn't trade him for the world.
It's so interesting, because that's kind of what happens. Like, we see from the outside that he was a hard coach and he would be laying into guys and he'd be tearing up officials. I played for a guy who was a very hard line coach like that too. He was very expressive, and it's not an easy program. It wasn't a program where I feel like everyone could thrive. But you see the players that came out of there and they did the things that they were asked to do. They would go to bat any day for my coach, and it's the same thing that you said. You go to bat, and it's really those experiences. Like, I remember an interaction I had with Urban the first week I was on campus, and I feel like that defined my career at Ohio State, and it was because of direct conversation and honesty. And I don't know how many guys necessarily get that. How much has spending that time, 5 years in that program around somebody like that, shaped and molded how you behave and how you conduct business today?
It's the foundation of my character, I would say, right? In high school, I feel like high school kids are still figuring stuff out. And I'm not generalizing. There's plenty of 16, 17, 18-year-old kids that have a great head on their shoulder and don't need that kind of structure. At the time of my life, I most certainly did, right? So learning there's consequences to your actions, most importantly, learning about perception, taking care of your character, those things matter in life. So those were lessons that we learned through through football, obviously, but those were lessons learned that I still hold true today. Like, it's simple stuff like being 5 minutes early to a meeting,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? And not being
Definitely.
2 minutes late. Some people just don't think like that, and I'm not do your thing, that's not what I'm saying. You're in the wrong. But in terms of the question being how much did it mold me? Really, it's the foundation of the man I am today, I would say.
I agree with that. And it's crazy too, because like, I think my parents they're wonderful people, and they've impacted me profoundly. But like, outside of my parents, I would say that the coaches I had were the most impactful people on my life. And to your point, it was the enhanced accountability that really did it for me.
Right.
It was the fact that there's a consequence if you weren't 5 minutes early to the meeting. It's not just something that people say. There was
Right.
like, something happens at the end of that if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And that accountability is absolutely huge. I want to dive into.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. You just made a good point. Just like, not to take away from my family. I got a credible family that I'm thankful for that have taught me numerous lessons. But it's a good point. Like, the discipline side of being a man we were gone from from the house from 18 to 22. So,
Yep.
I mean, you're talking about critical life lessons that you either learn or miss out on.
For sure. I want to dive into some of your career accolades here, because I was going through and I was looking it up, and I'm like, damn, my dude was a baller. So you're a record setter across the board while you were there, led in receptions for 4 years, the first Husker to ever do that. You left as number one in receptions and receiving yards and number one in offensive career starts. When I say that to you, what goes through your head?
It's all kind of a flash, because that sounds right. I kind of I kind of forgot about the starts. That I think that might be my most proud.
Sure.
I think I played
Durability.
more. Yeah, I think I played more downs and more minutes than any Husker in history.
That's wild.
Yeah, that at that point, that's crazy. Especially because I get criticized for being soft a lot.
I don't know how. So wait a minute, because let's talk about that. I don't know how in the hell anybody's gonna call you soft, because I watched you attempt murder on a man during a football game, the Big Ten championship game. What was that? 2012.
12, yeah, against Wisconsin.
And that was against Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And you attempted to take the life of another man. You put him in the dirt.
I wasn't trying to take his life. I was just playing.
That's what it looked like.
It was whistle to whistle. He was going to tackle
him.
No,
I mean, it was a legit football play, but I mean,
at that time,
there
it
was some
was
bad intentions behind it.
Yeah, at that time it was, but it was a legal football play. But like anytime back then, when I was going across, if I was running dig at 10 yards, right? Like I knew if I get left out, no one's going to lay up on me. I'm going to get smoked. So I was just playing whistle. I thought when I was in college, I think I was honestly probably known more as a blocking receiver than I was anything else. We had to block a lot, and it's something I took pride in. So no complaints here.
I was about to say, I mean, you've got the size too. You were a bigger wide receiver in terms of being able to block, just like a bigger frame type of guy. So I get that, but it's always interesting hearing some of the criticisms of people, and then it's like, okay, but do you turn on the tape? Because a guy who's willing to block the way that you did, not just that one big hit that you had, but like consistently in an offense that asked you to do so, somebody who's willing to go across the middle of the field, because I know wide receivers personally that would tell the coach that they're not running that route.
Oh yeah,
like they're like, coach, I'm not going in there, and if he throws it and it's not on target, I'm not going up to get it. Like you see the interceptions in games, honestly, where the guy doesn't fight for the ball in those types of situations.
Oh, you know it's coming.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You would stand in there and you would be the guy who would do all that kind of stuff. It's so crazy, the criticisms that you hear sometimes, because people literally don't turn on the games. Like from being in this, and you're gonna notice it the more time you spend in media. There are a lot of media members that don't watch the games. They don't watch it. And then they just whatever their opinion is, that's how they feel.
I've always wanted to do that, you know what I mean? Like really like genuinely get someone's opinion and then say, all right, because I don't mind if you have an opinion, right? But don't spit headline facts at me. Give me substance. Why do you think that way? I asked a reporter in Nebraska the other day that was talking about how the athletic play in the NBA has declined since Jordan years, and I'm not gonna get into that right now, right? But my question was like, where is the data, right, that supports this kind of thinking? Because I'm genuinely curious. Your thoughts are athletic ability has declined in 30 years.
Okay.
If that's your case, I would just enlighten me. You know what I mean? Teach me something that I'm not seeing.
So again, we definitely won't go down this rabbit hole because we could spend a long time on it. But I'll say, like, you got 7-footers who step outside. They play around the 3-point arc, and it's not just offensively. They play defense out there too. You got LeBron James, who is like one of the most impressive physical specimens to ever walk the earth, who's playing at an aggressively high level as he's aging, and somebody would have the nerve to make a comment like that.
It's just crazy to me. There's DNs in the NFL that are 6'6", 6'7", 280 that run 4'4", 4'5".
Yeah.
Like what in your mind how do you think that the game is declined?
I mean, you made
People
the
are
joke earlier, like you watched tape of your dad playing in the 80s and you joked about how he was slow. But
yeah,
like that was the athletes didn't have the same access to the nutrition, the training. Like we
training,
learned so much
everything.
about the human body in 30 years alone that would enhance people's athletic ability just based off of knowledge.
JP, just think about how these kids are training now. Like I'm looking at I was watching Zion like in high school, and kids are throwing windmills through the legs. Like, man, no one was doing that when we were in school, in
No,
high school. I didn't
no,
know I didn't know athletes like that. And I'm
it's
not saying they
crazy.
didn't maybe exist, but the training and the knowledge is clearly taking these dudes to another level. Because, I mean, look at a guy, a perfect example who we talk about, a Big Ten guy. Look at Chase Young.
Yeah,
Like, Chase Young is
for
a
real.
freak of nature, man.
Well,
And then
it's
he's just bullying people already as a rookie.
it's the point of Chase Young, a 270-pound defensive end that has a six-pack. Those guys didn't used to exist.
Where was that guy in 1982?
No, for real, those guys didn't used to exist.
That's what like
I don't know.
that
Like,
human being did not exist.
didn't
Like,
exist.
so
It's crazy. And they, I guess they didn't exist in the abundance that they do today too, because Chase isn't the only guy looking like that. JJ Watt is another guy who looks like he's
Bosa,
even bigger than
the
Chase.
Bosas, the
Yeah.
Watts, dude like DeMarcus Ware. I know he's retired, but like
Yes.
those kind of Julius Peppers, like those dudes were,
Exactly.
revolutionary to say the least.
I digress. We got off on a tangent.
Yeah, we did.
Man. These people have you tripping.
I had a feeling that was gonna happen.
You know, it was bound to happen. I want to circle on this before we move on to what you're doing today. You were fifth round pick in the NFL. You played a handful of years there. I was a fourth round pick. I ended up playing 2 seasons in the NFL. I was in my third preseason when I hung up the cleats. So I was a guy who went in there thinking I was probably going to be an 8 to 10 year vet who was going to have a long career, and it didn't just pan out. As you were heading into the league in 2015, what was your mentality around it? And as you look back on your career now that you've transitioned out, what are your thoughts?
Man, I was really thinking, I just finished up a great career at Nebraska, and I was seeing myself, same thing. I was going to be a 10-year vet in the league, be a great player for the Bucks. And it's just funny how life plays out. It just doesn't work out that way for you. I got down to Tampa my rookie year. I pulled my hamstring like right before our third preseason game. And Lovie Smith, funny story. I love Coach Smith. Lovie told me we were in Miami, and I was on the sideline. I didn't get to play because my hammy, and he looked at me, he goes, "How's that hammy feeling?" I was like, "Feels good. I think 3 weeks, and I'll be ready to play Carolina for week 1." And he's like, "Nah, I think it's pretty bad." And he just like he pulled his mic. He pulled his mic off. He's like, "No, it's really bad, and we're gonna hold you out this year." Little did I know, a couple weeks later, I met with him again. He's like, "Listen, hamstring cost me my career, so Lovey doesn't play with hammies, so they put me on IR my rookie year, and I came back, and they let Lovey go after my rookie year."
Wow.
They hired our OC. They promoted the OC, Dirk Cutter. He's actually the OC in Atlanta now. He didn't like me very much, to say the least. They got me up out of there. They fired me after the last preseason game. Baltimore picked me up, and I spent the 16th season in Baltimore on the P squad, signed my futures there, came back in 17, primed to Baltimore liked me a lot. I tore my right hamstring, like 6 inches of it, big old.
Sheesh.
Yeah, it was bad. So I was out 10 weeks, and then they brought me back. That was like our first padded practice in Baltimore for training camp. So I was out 10 weeks, and they brought me back like week 6. And I spent the rest of 17 on the P squad in Baltimore. At the very end of the year, I had an opportunity to hopefully get activated, and they actually activated a rookie named Quincy Adebojo out of Ole Miss. Baller, good dude.
Yep.
But it was like at that point I was like, all right, these guys are looking to go younger than me, so I'm gonna have to get out of here, find a new opportunity. That's when I landed in Denver, got to Denver, tore my hammy again, training camp, and that's when I was like, all right.
Oh man.
Yeah, at that point, when you're year 3 receiver, and you're having these hamstring issues, like I knew I wasn't really going to get picked up. So I moved to LA and I took care of I was a caretaker for my cousin. I don't know if you remember, I used to write T Hogue on my
Yep.
forearms. That's my cousin. His name's Tyler Hogue. He's a quadriplegic from a
Oh, wow.
accident he had while I was in school. But I moved to LA and I lived with him and was his caretaker while he was at USC, graduating from the film school there. And I was
Wow.
just training, getting ready for the Alliance of American Football. That started up. That went bankrupt, which was crazy.
That is wild.
Man, that was wild. JP, I got some stories for you about just that training camp,
Yeah.
all
We'll
that.
talk about those.
Yeah, we'll rap about that. But yeah, man, as far as the league goes, it was just such a roller coaster ride that I never it made me lose faith and love in the game, and it
Yep.
wasn't that just getting beat up and like grinding and getting your hopes up so much every year and then just having it all taken away really did like a mental number on me more than anything else. Like I know the physical thing with football is always going to be tough. Your body's going to hurt, but like to work yourself up into that mentality and compete so hard for so many years and it never, really pan out was probably it's still probably the hardest pill to swallow, right? Because forever I'm gonna wonder what it was like to play on a Sunday because I put in all that work, but at the same time, like my journey, the lessons that I learned, I think are more impactful in my life right now than they would have been had everything just been, smooth as gravy and, gotten to play that whole time. So I try and look at the bright side of things.
It's so interesting hearing you tell that because I feel like a lot of that resonates with my journey in the NFL. And that, I was active my rookie year and I was active my second year for most of the time. But I got similar to you, injuries because I had a few concussions I sustained when I was playing in the league and then transition. I played on a 4-12 team. Coaches got fired. New coaching staff came in. I was playing so you'll love this. I was playing at 255 my rookie year at inside linebacker. We were switching to a hybrid 4-3 defense. They wanted they liked a slimmer body type. So I went all the way through OTAs. They never told me this. And as I'm leaving to go back home for that little break before training camp, it's about 6 weeks. I get my letter saying what weight they want me to come back at. It's 255. They said I needed to come back to training camp at 235. So I had 6 weeks to lose 20
pounds. They told
pounds.
You that as you were leaving?
Yeah, because they wanted to cut me. They wanted to make it difficult.
I was going to say, I'm not trying to be rude, bro, but they're trying to get rid of you.
Yeah, they absolutely were. And I realized that, but I did all the things I needed to do. I lost 20 pounds in 6 weeks so I could come back to training camp and not give them a reason to cut me right off the bat. And I ended up with an injury at the end of the preseason. So, they waived me injured and I signed a settlement and I was able to sign with another team. So I went to Indianapolis and I played there for that year and I actually ended off that year on P squad and I signed my futures. That whole coaching staff got fired after I had signed my futures contract, which I'm like, but anyway.
Yeah. You're on the phone with the agent saying like, damn.
Yeah, I know. Like, what can we do? But I ended up getting cut that off season too. And it was a similar situation. I got to Indy at 235. Indy wanted me to play at 260.
Of course.
And the new coaching staff comes in and they're like, no, we need you at about like 240. And I was like, okay. So I wasn't the guy that they wanted. I understood that. And at least they cut me with some time for me to figure out a situation heading into that next season. Then I got to Seattle. Injuries got me. And so when I look back, I'm like you. I'm thankful because of the lessons I learned. And, I had to deal with a lot of things not being in my control, which is very tough. And I feel like as athletes, we want to control as many aspects as possible. But if I'm being honest, there's a lot of bitterness when I look back at that portion of my life too, because of what you said. You do everything that somebody asks you to do, and it's still not good enough. That sucks. You have a vision of what you want your career to be, and you don't achieve that vision in a situation where most of the time you've been able to achieve the things that you've been purpose-driven and visionary about. That really sucks. And so like I'm sitting here a few years later and I'm still reconciling with the bitterness and the mental toll that I experienced, but it's taxing when I do that. So I have to try to compartmentalize, and it's something that I'll deal with and continue to think about moving forward. But I appreciate your honesty and sharing that part of your journey, because I feel like not enough guys do it when they get out. You know, everybody's patting them on the back and it's great
Yeah.
you became a pro, but there's some legitimate baggage, I guess, that you carry around after you're done playing the game.
Oh, I think there's more guys out there dealing with you and like our situation than there is that guys that, make it to the top level and just play on every Sunday. You know what I mean? It's a grind out there. It really is. I mean, I think the hardest part about it, like looking back, is you and I both know there's more than 1,696 guys that can play in the NFL, right? Like that's how many active
Yep.
guys there are at any given moment on 32 teams, 1696. Like you'd be very naive to think that there is not 1,700 guys in this country that could fill rosters. So that's why I like to see stuff like the AAF and the XFL, give guys kind of a second chance. If the NFL, in my opinion, if the NFL was smart, their OTAs, that kind of stuff would be spring football, where their futures players, guys that they need to develop, that they play games against other organizations, same exact thing. Because then you eliminate, you're cutting a guy just because, roster spots, right?
Right.
You
Well,
get to
and then
actually
the other
develop,
thing that brings up,
develop those guys.
well, and it's the development, but for the guys too, there's an opportunity for the pro scouts to get a look at you in a different setting.
Yep.
Because the hardest thing, I think, for a lot of guys who are bottom end roster guys, P squad caliber guys who sign futures, or guys who are aging veterans, is you go through all the work during OTAs and nobody on the outside gets to see it. And they get to see a snippet of you during training camp, whether it's in a scrimmage setting or whether it's in a preseason game, but those are so watered down. And so the ability, I think, for you to have that as much exposure as possible, another organization will see you, and if you get cut, it's just more opportunities for somebody to want to pick you up.
Yep.
So we'll transition out of that now. We'll talk about what you're doing. Obviously, we, met each other contributing with BTN, which I think is just a fantastic thing, covering football in the conference that we both played in and we have a lot of respect for. What else is going on in your world?
Yeah, besides, chasing that BTN dream, I really enjoyed working with Big Ten Network while I was in school, and now getting on that back end of my football career now that that's over, really trying to transition into, the kind of analyst work and calling games. I think that'd be something that I'd really enjoy, something that I've always wanted to do. But other than that, I got a day job at a company called NCR. It's called National Cash Register. I work in hospitality, small, medium business. I sell point of sale system and merchant services. So honestly, I go into restaurants, pull doors, introduce myself, tell them I'm with NCR, and find pain points within their restaurant and then provide solutions for them. It's pretty good.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I get to interact with people, so I love it.
It's so funny. I see a lot of former football players get out of ball and they go into sales roles because of the personality. Yeah. Which I think when you're in a locker room, you learn how to connect with different people from different backgrounds with different likes and dislikes. Right. And you do it on a high level. But number two, man, you eat what you kill. Like you go out there and like, listen, I can go out and I can make, $5,000 if I don't feel like working as much. I could go out and I can make $20,000 in a month if you feel like really grinding. And that's something that I think appeals. And so it's really interesting, man. When I talk to guys who I used to play with, what are you doing? I'm selling insurance. I'm selling payroll. I'm selling real estate. I'm selling medical devices, like all that kind of stuff. I feel like as much as we are very unique people, there are so many things about us that kind of just fall in line. It's so crazy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But I think it goes back to that foundation as what we learned, from the game, that dedication, hard work, and compete.
For real. I mean, it's obscure too when you talk about that competition. Like, I know guys who played at Ohio State. One guy has his own company selling water. Another guy sells custom suits. So it's like anywhere you can find that competitive edge and something that you're passionate about is what we see guys jump into. Outside of your professional life, what are your passions? Like, what are you doing right now that's stimulating your mind and your soul outside of what you're doing professionally?
Yeah, absolutely. I golf. So golfing is has replaced football in terms of like that competitive edge for me. It's something that I really want to progress in and start to compete more in. It's something that I've really picked up this past year. Well, I mean, I've played my whole life, but last summer I tore my quadricep tendon from my kneecap, so I didn't get to play for a whole year. This
That's
summer,
rough.
yeah, it was terrible, bro. It was by far the worst injury I've ever had.
Sheesh.
But other than that, I actually invested recently in a gaming studio called Frozen Sailor Studios. And I'm in the midst of developing our first game. And with our game, it'll be all encompassing with a manga and an anime that I'll voice act for as well. So, yeah,
Nice.
I'm looking forward to that.
You got some stuff going on, man. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, I'm juggling.
No, it's the way to be, man. I'm similar to you. I've got a day job and I'm doing the BTN thing, but I've got a couple of passion projects, including this podcast and some other new media type stuff that I'm really trying to develop. And it's probably unhealthy to a certain point, but you're filling a void of what you used to have in a former life in a way that you used to live.
Yep.
And it's kind of insatiable. Like hopefully at some point I'll be able to settle my ass down.
Yeah, just
and
relax.
be a little more normal, but I can't do it right now.
Not right now though, man. I feel
No.
you. Like it's literally what connection can I make? Who can I network with? What can I do next? It may be that, it's funny you say that. I haven't thought of it in terms of like my brain and just who I am transitioning away from football, but still needing to find, that edge. I think that I hadn't reflected on it like that. That's a great point.
No, I mean, I think that's what it is for me is just, like it's got to be something, like this is a terrible story, but my fiance has a 6-year-old sister, and the sister is actually turning 4 today. And the 6-year-old always wants to play board games, and I play board games as hard as I can against her.
To win.
Yes. And it's almost to a point where it torments her. But this is something interesting I realized is I could beat her ass in a game of Sorry, and she will want to play me 20 more times until she wins the game. And so, like, it's first off, being a kid, like your worldview is so different. But it's fun watching a little competitor come up in the world too, because like I definitely resonate with that because I was that same kid when I was little.
Yeah, I've got a younger sister that is actually one of the best goalies in high school soccer here in Colorado. And my favorite thing to do right now is go watch her play because she's a competitor, man, and just nothing fires me up like competing. And I know you're the same way, JP. Like, there's just nothing better than competition in my mind. I love it, man. I live for it.
No, it brings out the best. I'll get you out of here on this question. You've been rocking that afro for a long time.
I have.
Is there a story behind it?
No, man, I can't say if there's really a story behind it. When I was growing up, I was always bald. Like my mom would shave my head bald, and I had
big old ears. I remember that photo.
Oh man, I had
that BTM put out there.
Woo! I had satellites. I still have them. But really, yeah, one time at football camp, this is how big my ears were. People were all like, all the kids were yelling and stuff, and everything had quieted down for a second. I was like, "Hey, be quiet!" And my boy next to me, he's like, "KB's ears are so big, he can hear you guys' thoughts." And the whole camp was laughing at me, bro. And at that point, I was like, I gotta do something about these. But no, it was probably my senior year where I just started growing my hair in high school, or my junior year. And then I cut it right before my senior year, and then I let it just grow again. And since then, just been rocking with it.
No, I can appreciate it. I got the baby fro going right now, man. I
like your style, bro.
Yeah, I'm just unapologetically gonna be me, and I'm gonna appreciate it for what it is. And so I can see, because it's like folks probably talk about it, and it's not something that people are used to, and you'll even get the comments, and I've had them before because I've been a guy who had cornrows and dreadlocks that it's not necessarily professional, or I didn't expect you to be like that. And it's like, why? Because I have long hair, whatever the case is. But you've been rocking it for years, man. And I feel like it's definitely, it doesn't define you, but it's definitely a part of you.
Yeah, definitely. It's I get it trimmed every now and then, but I really couldn't imagine cutting my hair at this point. It's definitely become a part of me without a doubt.
No, that's awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you joining us. We got my guy, Kenny Bell, stopped by today, spent some good time, heard a lot about his football career. Really talked about some deeper things too, what drives him, the competitive spirit, the impact of the program that he was a part of on his life, and just sharing some good laughs as well. So appreciate you stopping through.
Appreciate you having me, JP, man.
Definitely.